Hello. Are we live? Hello, everyone. Give me some thumbs up, some hellos in the chat if you all can hear me all right, or if you can't, also let me know. That would be good for me to be aware of. But I see that there are already several of you here. Thank you so much for joining me on a midweek, doing a little bit of fermentation here. I It is 7:30 p.m. here in Los Angeles on the West Coast, and I admittedly am a little sleepy. Um, I may have overcommitted myself doing a full work day, and then popping onto YouTube and doing a live. But you know what? Sometimes we are on our ferments schedule, and I have put it off for too long. This has actually been fermenting since the day we did our last live stream. There was a posted on here with the date. I have since lost it. As you can see, I'm not that rigid of a kombucha brewer, contrary to what many may believe based on literally the 100 videos on kombucha that I have on my channel. But when I'm brewing for myself and for my family, I'm a lot more loosey goosey about it. Usually, life will do as it does. The ferment will do as it does. There are so many different variables that you just kind of have to play around with when it comes to fermentation that um, my goal with providing you all with all of the details and the variables that you all can play around with is just to make it so that you can tweak the parameters, make the kombucha brews the way you really like them, and basically just go with the flow. So the more we know about how all the different variables interact with each other, the more that we can make delicious brews no matter what all those different variables may be fluctuating and sending our way. Anyhow, long preamble. Welcome to You Brew Kombucha. What we're doing here is we are flavoring and bottling a batch of fermented kombucha tea. If you don't know what the difference is between a first ferment and a second ferment, I have a bunch of resources on my channel, but the TLDR, long story short, there is kombucha is just fermented sweet tea. And in order to get it to a fruity, flavored, bubbly state, you basically have to undergo two stages of fermentation. And the reason for that is that first ferment really takes that plain sweet tea into that probiotic rich, bacteria and yeast rich, beneficial bacteria and yeast rich drink that we know and love. But we don't necessarily want to start carbonating it at that stage because then it'll get over carbonated. It doesn't really take that long to carbonate a batch of kombucha. Obviously, like I said, there are different variables, and so your mileage may vary depending on the temperature, depending on the strength of your Scoby, depending on a variety of other things. But generally, first fermentation can take anywhere from about a week to 3 weeks, and second fermentation can take anywhere from around between 3 days to a week, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how the temperature is in your home. But like I said, we're going to be doing second fermentation. So this batch of kombucha has been, I think it's been fermenting for, keep me honest, crew, is it about 2.5 weeks? It's a little bit longer than I was aiming for. I was aiming to hopefully bottle it at the 2 week mark. But last weekend ended up being a little bit busier. And that's the good thing about kombucha too, is that it is adaptable. And a little bit of wiggle room here and there isn't really going to destroy your batch. You can always just make some tweaks to adjust. This is only my second live stream, crew. I've only ever done 2 of these. So bear with me if it's glitchy. Do let me know. I'm going to try to do my best to actually try to follow along in the chat and answer questions as we go. Because I don't think I did a great job of doing that last time. I think I just answered questions right at the end, but I will do my best to follow along. Let me do a little bit of catching up right now. Apple Gal, it is midnight in Newfoundland. Thank you so much. If you're still hanging around, good night. You're also, of course, welcome to just catch the replay. Sleep is important. Prioritize rest, but we're happy to have you over here. Scott Crail, my buddy, tea slinger, fellow tea slingers. I think that there are some tea slinger Discord peeps who are in the chat. So massive shout out to you. Hello, my fellow tea lovers, tea drinkers. Let's see who else is here. Oh my goodness, there are already 45 of you. Hello, hello. Thank you so much for tuning in. Oh my gosh, Apple Gal, you are here. Hello, my buddy. Thank you for sticking around. It's so late where you are. Okay, we're gonna get into it because, well, there isn't really much with the second fermentation process. I guess I'll walk you through the details here. What I'm most excited to show you is the ferment and what it looks like after about 2.5 weeks or so of first fermentation. It's been getting a little bit warmer here in Los Angeles. We've been kind of consistently in the 80s, low to mid 80s in my part of LA. And that has made for a pretty thriving brew. So I'm going to show you what this looks like here. And you can see, I hope you can see. Here, I'm going to push this up. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. I don't know about you. Those of you who are already like seasoned kombucha brewers, that like aroma of that delicious yeasty ferment. Whenever, like, I love going to breweries. I love drinking beer. I did a stint. I was a beer brewer for a little bit. Probably not going to do it again, to be honest. It's just a lot of effort, and there are so many great craft breweries out there. I'm not good enough at it to compete at that level. Anyhow, I digress. But the smell of that that delicious fermentation smell that you get when you walk into a brewery that's like actively brewing, I get a little bit of that hit whenever I brew a batch of kombucha, and it's so pleasing to the soul. I don't know about you. You let me know. Am I weird? Probably. But it smells so delicious already. People often also ask me, is this already safe to drink? Is this ready to drink? The reality is, yes, it's honestly ready to drink at any stage of the process. Like I said, this really is just sweet tea that you're adding kombucha to. So that kombucha, that starter tea, is safe to drink. It's going to be pretty tart. It's going to be pretty sour if you're using good quality starter tea, but it is totally safe to drink. And since you're adding it to something that's already safe to drink plus safe to drink means you can drink it at any time. If you start seeing anything that visibly looks like mold, the same type of mold that you might see growing on a piece of cheese or a piece of fruit, a piece of bread in your kitchen, then yeah, just toss it. Not worth risking it. But if it is looking like this, where you see a Scoby or a pellicle growing at the top of the vessel, that's a really good sign and a good indicator that fermentation has happened. The pH of this brew has dropped to a safe enough level that makes it inhospitable to harmful pathogens and bacteria. And in all likelihood, this brew is good to go. And so I often tell people that Scoby growth, pellicle growth is not an indicator of when your kombucha is done, but it is an indicator that fermentation is happening, which is a positive sign. So the first step in doing this, I haven't tasted this since about the 4-day mark when it was still pretty sweet. So I'm curious to see how it's going to taste today. Because I did let it go a little bit longer than I was intending. But why don't we go ahead and just get started? So what I'm actually going to do is I have, if you tuned into my last live stream, I said that I had basically gotten rid of my old Scoby hotel. I'm starting from scratch because I took a very long hiatus when I got pregnant and had my baby. And so it was just like, I don't want to keep maintaining my hotels. Though I have maintained hotels for like, I had one that I kept for like a year and didn't touch for a year and it was still good to go. But about 2 years was a little much for me. So I let that Scoby hotel return to the land in the form of compost. And I just started with a new pellicle and a new starter tea, which you can always do. I see someone in the comments saying kombucha is very forgiving. It really is. It really is a very forgiving ferment. So what we're going to do is I'm basically creating a new Scoby hotel. And I'm just going to take a clean, food safe jar or glass that you can, a Tupperware, whatever you've got at home is totally fine. Clean hands. This is going to be a really fun part because we're going to pull out our pellicle. Look at how beautiful. How beautiful is that pellicle? I It reminds me of a gorgeous full moon. Does it not? Um, I love how when they're fresh and new like this, it's so satisfying. So we're gonna take enough fawning over the pellicle. All right, we're gonna put her in the jar. I'm gonna put her in the jar. And the fun thing about this brew actually is I had two pellicles form, and the reason why that happened is because on day 4, if you go to my channel, I had a spoon. I know I had a spoon here. It's all already falling apart. Bam. I had a ladle. Okay. Okay. We're just gonna go in with my cleaver. Okay. We actually had two pellicles form because on day 4, when I filmed a YouTube short to show you what tasting it would look like, this was the original pellicle that started to form across the top of the surface. And when I stuck a straw into this jar to taste it, to see how it was going, it sunk to the bottom. And so that's actually another really good lesson. A lot of people, like I said, there's not really much, it doesn't matter whether a pellicle forms or not. It's always really satisfying when it does, which is why I think a lot of particularly newer kombucha brewers are fixated on it. I mean, I get the fixation. But the reality is, even if your batch doesn't form a pellicle, if you taste it and it tastes like it's acidified, that means fermentation happened. And so you don't have to wait for a pellicle to form in order to know that your kombucha is fermenting properly. So, but anyhow, another thing that another common, I guess, question that I get from folks is like, I've been tasting my kombucha every day. I've been checking on it every day, and I can't seem to get a Scoby to form across the top of the surface. One reason why a Scoby may not form on the top of your vessel is because you're agitating it too much. If you're constantly or regularly poking a straw in there, trying to futz around with it, it makes it less likely for that pellicle to actually form a cohesive mass at the top of the vessel, which is why, if you're new and super curious, yeah, absolutely check on it every day if you like. If you're really itching to find out what's happening in the process, it really is fascinating. So I understand the urge to do that. But if you're one of those kombucha brewers that really wants like a solid Scoby, a solid pellicle to form, my recommendation would just be to set it and forget it and just let it do its thing. And as you can see, in my case, I forgot about mine. I didn't touch it for about 2 weeks. And a really solid pellicle just formed across the top. So if you care about Scoby growth, just leave it alone. And then this last thing that I'm pulling out from here is actually the original pellicle that I got from the Fermentaholics starter tea and Scoby kit that I purchased online. And I see some comments here that pellicle is perfect. Scott, yes, is that not a perfect pellicle? This is why I love recommending Fermentaholics. And this is not a sponsored video. They're just the brand that I have consistently been able to recommend and consistently purchased myself throughout the years because I've never had any trouble starting a new kombucha batch whenever I've used their starter cultures, which means that they're treating those cultures right. It means that they're giving you really good quality stuff. All right, so this was the original. And now, in the span of 2.5 weeks, we've got 3 separate pellicles, a very strong batch of kombucha here. And what I'm going to do, the next time I brew, I'm actually going to brew 2 gallons. So, oh my gosh, is there a third pellicle in there? Or oh no, this one was also part of the original fermentaholics. Okay, so we've got Scobies upon Scobies here. We have so many. Um, so what I'm doing here is I'm just giving the brew a nice stir, and I can already see. I'll try to hold the jar up. It looks kind of like a lava lamp, but you can see that there are different particulates, different yeasty bits. My my computer camera is probably not good enough to show you all this, so I probably just look ridiculous. I'm gonna stop now. Um, they look like jellyfish. I'm seeing someone in the comments saying that they look like jelly. Am I seeing? Did I just read that? Did I make that up? Did someone say it looks like a jellyfish? Yes, it looks like an alien jellyfish. I didn't make that up, and yes, you are correct. Um, and you'll see different yeasty bits floating around in the liquid. That's totally fine. That is actually what's going to help our brew carbonate in this next phase. So I like to give it a good stir. You don't have to use a cleaver. I don't know where I put my spoon. It's somewhere here. I also get the question a lot, can I use metal utensils? Can I use plastic utensils? Can I use wooden spoons? Yes to all of it. The reality is that this is not at a low enough reactive pH to corrode your food safe metal utensils. And people say, stainless steel, it kills bacteria, so it's going to kill the bacteria and yeast in your brew. It's not going to be in contact with the brew for long enough for that to actually happen. So just use whatever kitchen utensils you have in your home. I do have a straw. Okay, so I'm going to give this a taste before we start flavoring it because I kind of want to get a baseline understanding of how tart and how sweet it is after it's fermented because that's going to greatly affect the amount of flavoring that we use before we bottle them. So let's just give this a quick taste. Ooh, that's actually quite nice. Not too sweet, not too tart. I was worried that it was going to be closer to vinegar at this point, but it's actually very, very nice. It's close to like an apple cider. I'm getting like alcoholic apple cider vibes, which is great. Delicious. So before we get, before we start putting this into bottles, I'm going to go ahead and prepare my flavorings. So if you follow me on Instagram, which if you don't follow me on Instagram, go and follow me on Instagram. It's You Brew Kombucha. I think on YouTube Live or the little shorts, YouTube Shorts and Instagram, I had posted that if you guess the flavor of what I'm gonna bottle for this live stream, I will send you a copy of my book, The Kombucha Crafter's Logbook. And a lot of people were commenting with passion fruit because passion fruit is notoriously my favorite. So all of you who guessed passion fruit, you're the OGs. Thank you very much. You've probably watched all of the videos where I just go on and on about how passion fruit is my favorite flavor, but I'm not bottling passion fruit tonight. I know. We are bottling another one of my favorites, and I actually think somebody guessed it. Someone on YouTube commented on my YouTube shorts and guessed the flavor. So I am sending out a copy of my book. But I am flavoring with orange rosemary. Kind of an unconventional flavor. I have not seen a single kombucha, a store-bought kombucha, that flavors with tangerine rosemary or orange rosemary. What we're doing today is a combination of orange and mandarins, because that's what I have on hand, and some fresh rosemary. And it makes for such a delightful flavor combination. And the alpine kind of cooling herbal quality of the rosemary just marries so perfectly with the sweet citrus and the acidic, leaning into vinegary flavor notes of the kombucha itself. It melds beautifully with the malty sort of, I guess, the richness, the malty richness that black tea brings. And we used, if I'm remembering correctly, I think we used Darjeeling black tea for this batch. So there are some floral qualities there. So I'm already feeling really, really good about this batch. So we're going to prep our flavorings. So a few things about flavorings. I prefer to use fresh fruit wherever possible. That said, there are certain fruits that are very difficult to come by fresh here in the United States. So passion fruit is one of them. I love passion fruit. It's my favorite flavor, and the only way I can get it consistently and affordably is by buying the frozen passion fruit pulp, which thankfully carbonates and flavors and ferments in kombucha quite well. So I've never had any complaints about that. But if you're trying to flavor with, say, an orange juice concentrate or an apple juice concentrate from the store, there's something about, I think, the fact that it's pasteurized, the fact that it's not really a living ingredient anymore, that in some ways I find hinders fermentation. And so whenever people say I'm having trouble carbonating my batches, it was fermenting, the first ferment went so well and I had Scoby growth, but then I flavored it with this fruit flavoring and it was completely flat no matter how long I second fermented it for. A lot of the times I've realized that those people are using like jams, like preserved fruits or fruit concentrates. And obviously it depends on the brand, it depends on how they've actually preserved the fruit, but oftentimes, more often than not, just like anecdotally speaking from other fellow homebrewers, I hear that people tend to have a harder time carbonating when they use uh, pasteurized or fruit concentrates compared to fresh fruit. Let's see. I'm going to pause to scroll through the comments, see if there are any questions before we move forward. Let's see. Yeah, Pellicle. Lots of good Pellicle conversation here. Melisandra Worthington. Never bought a Pellicle. Always made my own using store-bought kombucha. Yes. Also a really good option. I think I've done a video on that on my channel, if I'm remembering correctly. But yes, if you don't want to purchase a pellicle, you very well could just buy a plain unflavored bottle of kombucha and just literally let that sit in a jar at room temperature and it will grow a Scoby on its own, assuming there are enough live bacterial and yeast cultures in there to do that. Ooh, another ferment, raspberry with hibiscus mint tea. That sounds delicious. Okay, last batch, Fabienne. My last batch was cloudy and no bubbles. What do I think about that? Cloudiness is okay. So this brew is actually pretty cloudy. And that's just because of the yeast that is growing and permeating the brew. So cloudiness is fine. If it wasn't carbonating, there could be a variety of reasons why your batch didn't carbonate. I do have a ton of recommendations, and I think I might have just like a video dedicated to carbonation because there are a few different ways that that the process could go wrong. Even though wrong is not the right word for it, if it tastes fine, it's not wrong. But if you want it to be bubblier, a few things right off the bat that I can recommend. One, making sure that you are sealing your bottles airtight, and we'll cover that in a little bit when I show you how I bottle this batch. So making sure that you have an airtight seal on your bottles will help make sure that you're trapping those carbonation bubbles into the brew and it's not escaping out into the air. A second recommendation would be to use fresh fruit and see if that makes a difference in your brew. Another recommendation would be to ferment it longer. So leave it at room temperature for longer. Depending on your Scoby and depending on your environment, it might take a little bit longer to carbonate, depending on how much starter tea you use, how much it was diluted, depending on the tea that you're using, and depending on the strength of the culture itself. So those are all factors that can affect how well your batch carbonates. So give those a try. And if all else fails and you find that you're really not getting carbonation after you've done seemingly everything you can, you might just want to look into getting a different Scoby or getting different starter tea. Try different starter tea because it may just be something about that particular culture that isn't reacting well to your process or your environment. And if you try a different culture, it may work a little bit better for you. Okay, let's make some juice. So this is simple. No one really needs a walkthrough of how to juice some mandarins, but I have some really nice ripe mandarins here. And if we need more juice, I also have some oranges. Ooh, look at how pretty. I love the color. Okay. Let's start with this much for now. And I got this juicer from QVC. Is anyone out there a QVC fan? So don't knock it until you've watched it. It's actually like one of my favorite things to watch because it's like a slice of it's a slice of America in the most hilarious way. And more often than not, it's very uneventful and there's nothing really going on. You know, they're just selling products. Sometimes it's like kitchen gadgets and um sometimes it's clothing, um, but and sometimes it's food. But it's basically like I'm just fascinated that these QVC hosts. My favorite is David Venable. Everyone's favorite is David Venable. I mean, he's a gem. He's an American icon, a gem. Uh, but QVC, I'm just fascinated by the fact that these people have their job is to just find an infinite number of ways to describe these items that they're selling and they're not allowed to basically stop talking. And I can kind of relate in this moment because I feel like I, there are how many of you? There are about 51 of you. Oh my gosh, there are 51 of you. Thank you so much. There are about 51 of you that are tuning in, but I can't see any of your faces. So it just looks like I'm talking to myself by myself in my kitchen, which is a little odd for someone who's not used to doing this. But what I find fascinating about QVC, so it's like one of our televised home shopping networks, um, not to be confused with HSN, which is actually the home shopping network. But did you know they're the same company? Same company. QVC and HSN, they're not rivals, they're not competitors. Why did I start talking about this? Oh, because I got this juicer from QVC. And yes, it is an easy juicer. So they did this fantastic demo showing how to use it's a very well crafted, well designed juicer. So there's a carafe down at the bottom that holds the juice, and nifty is also a measuring cup. So you can actually measure the liquid. Now I feel like a QVC host. This is actually my QVC demo tape. David Venable, if you're watching, give me a call. No, I would not do well on QVC. This is a weird tangent, but yes, it is quite an easy juicer. So we're just gonna go ahead and juice Juice your citrus in whatever way you prefer to juice. And if you want to reduce waste, which yes, we should do what we can within reason to reduce the amount of waste. Check out my video on, I don't even know what I called it, but I have a video on my channel. I'll try to link it in the description box below if you're watching the replay of this. But if you're watching the live stream, it is how to make, I think it's how to make fruit syrups. You can save these peels and still extract a lot of really great flavor out of them by simmering them with water and sugar or a sweetener of your choice. And you can make a syrup out of them that's great for drizzling over fruit. It's great for using in vinaigrettes. You can use it to flavor kombucha, flavor cocktails, mocktails. So don't get rid of those peels. Use them. So we're gonna keep juicing here. I will try to check in on the comments here. Julia says, I get a crazy amount of carbonation when I do watermelon. Yes, watermelon is wild when it comes to second ferment. So one other thing that will definitely help with carbonation, I think it's the sugar content. So fruit obviously has natural sugars. If there isn't enough sugar in the kombucha come second fermentation time, it will have a hard time carbonating. And the reason for that is because sugar is the nutrient source that the Scoby, the bacterial culture of the culture of bacteria and yeast, feeds on the sugar. As it's feeding on that sugar, as it's digesting the sugars, it creates carbon dioxide as a byproduct. And so that carbon dioxide is carbonation, which makes the kombucha fizzy. So if there isn't enough sugar for the bacteria and yeast to eat, you don't get carbonation. So I know, especially these days, there are a lot of people who are watching the sugar for a variety of reasons. Totally valid. And you may also just need to adjust the amount of sugar. You may need to increase it by either adding more fruit or adding other sweeteners during the second fermentation stage to help with creating more of that carbonation, if carbonation is what you are indeed looking for. So that's another tip to help with carbonation. A question from Sean. How do you know when to split your Scoby? I just keep using the same one and it's getting big and probably time to split it. Yeah, it's really just up to you. I mean, some people don't use a Scoby at all. They just use the starter tea. I prefer to use a Scoby just because I do believe that there is some bacteria and yeast that is housed on the pellicle itself, which generally helps accelerate fermentation for me personally. So I do use it. But if it's getting unwieldy or if it's taking up too much space in your brew vessel, absolutely cut it. It really is just up to your personal preference at that point. Okay, so we are, how much juice do we have here? We've got a good amount of juice. I think, should I slice more oranges? I think this might be okay, actually, because I am going to take about 4 cups of this finished kombucha and put it into my Scoby hotel so that I can have a good amount of starter tea to make 2 gallons of kombucha the next time I get a batch going. So I'm trying to kind of gradually scale up my production. So next time I'm going to be brewing 2 gallons worth. Okay. So look at that. Beautiful mandarin orange juice. We have about 12 fluid ounces, 300 mils of freshly squeezed juice right there. Look at liquid sunshine. Look at how gorgeous. Okay. So we are ready to, well, actually, let's talk about bottles. Let's talk about bottles. I get a lot of questions about these bottles. They are my favorite bottles to use because look at how cute they are. Are they not adorable? So these are stout bottles. They're called stout bottles. You can buy them from specialty bottle distributors. I got mine from a local place here in LA called General Bottle Supply, which is literally the most generic name for a bottle supplier that one can have. Yeah, General Bottle Supply. It is so general, and they supply bottles. But I picked them because they're local to me. They had an actual showroom where I could go and test out samples and like literally hold them in my hand. I went down a very deep bottle rabbit hole. So if you check out my bottle video, if you check out my video on bottles and caps, I have a bottle, or I have a bottle. I have a video on specialty bottles. Um, they, I, I went down a very big rabbit hole, testing out lots of different bottles. That said, you do not have to use these bottles. Um, Scott, you're saying these are the bottles that you had to buy 48 of. It depends on where you source them from. I do have a link, I think, on one of my pages to somewhere on Amazon that sold them at one point. I don't know if they still sell them. These are really just sold to like people who are manufacturing things. So people who sell sauces. It's not really the type of bottle that they sell to just like home brewers and bottlers. But I like went down this weird rabbit hole, and so I bought several cases of them. Just because of the amount of beverages that I tend to brew and make at home. But you don't have to use these bottles. If you buy store-bought kombucha, so like Health Aid bottles, GT's bottles, those are also great for reusing to make your own kombucha. And you can just, seal them up tight. Whatever bottle you prefer. There are also the flip top bottles are pretty classic for home fermenters. You can buy those, I think, in packs of like 6 or even fewer if you're not sure. If you want to commit to buying 48, which I realize is that's a lot of bottles. So yes, I understand if that's not quite something you're interested in doing. Um, but I happen to really like these, and they have them in several sizes. I used to bottle in 12 fluid ounce size bottles. These ones are 8 ounces, so they're a little teeny tinier. But I don't find myself chugging large volumes of kombucha, and I just find that the smaller size is best for me. What I'm gonna do with each of these bottles is put a sprig of rosemary in each one, and these smell really fragrant, smell delicious. I'm just gonna I don't actually know how many bottles I'm gonna use. So we're gonna start out with 6. And you know what I should do? I should do what they do at like fancy cocktail bars, and I should bruise the rosemary before I put them in there. Release some of those essential oils and aromas. But I love combining herbs with fruit for kombucha flavors. I have a whole other video with some fruit and herb flavor combos and pairings, I think. But I'm curious, what are your favorite, I guess, herbal or non-herbal flavor pairings to put into your kombucha brews? I really love the flavor of berries and thyme. So, like blackberry thyme is a delicious combo. I think strawberry thyme also really good. Strawberries are really great at um, creating great carbonation in kombucha. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do another bottle here. Wow, this is a really hearty sprig of rosemary here. Okay, let's start out with 6, and I will do more if I need to. But now let's get back to our kombucha. So, oh man, I shouldn't use this because I just used it to cut the rosemary. Okay, I actually do need a clean spoon. So I will be right back. Hold. Okay, I'm back. So we're gonna give our brew a stir, a good stir. So sediment yeast tends to settle down at the bottom. So we will make sure that the brew is nice and homogeneous before we bottle. Very important. And so, like I said, I'm going to reserve some of this finished kombucha, this starter tea, to add to our Scoby hotel so that I can get the next batch of kombucha going. And I'm gonna save like a good amount of it, 4 cups, because I want to double my batch of kombucha next time. So Scoby hotel, 4 cups of kombucha, and that's going to be ready for us to make our next batch next time. I may or may not live stream it. We'll see. So the rest is for grabs for flavoring. So yeah, I'm going to do this in a pitcher. So I have a pitcher here. And if you wanted to, you could strain this liquid. You could strain the yeast out. I'm going to leave it in because I don't want to walk over there to get a strainer. But if you really wanted to strain it, you can strain it. And now we are going to add our freshly squeezed orange juice. And people always ask me like, how much flavoring should I put in each bottle? It really depends. It depends on your taste preferences. So this is not super potent. If this was an orange juice concentrate, it would obviously be more concentrated. And so I always just tell people to go by taste. So we're going to give this a taste after I flavor it, and that's going to tell me whether I need to add more orange juice or, well, I can't take any out. So it's just going to tell me if I need to add more. But I have a feeling this is going to be fine. So let's just add it. Like I said, it's very forgiving. You do not have to be super rigid about it. So give that a stir. And we'll give it a taste. You know, I think I do want to add more orange. So okay. So this, when I'm not really not measuring at all. I'm just going based on taste. And again, because we are going to continue to ferment this for a few days at least, some of that sweetness is going to dissipate. It's not going to taste the way it tastes right now once it's done carbonating, because some of that sweetness will get eaten away by the yeast and bacteria, converted into carbon dioxide, which means that it will get a little bit more acidic. And because of that, what I'm trying, the flavor profile that I'm going for at this stage is a little bit sweeter and a little bit more potent than the finished product that I want to drink once it's done with its second fermentation. So that's why I'm adding a little bit more orange. But again, if you want a more subtle orange flavor, by all means, just tailor it to whatever your taste preferences are. I see some really good flavor combos. Ginger and lemon, delicious. I love a raspberry, ginger, and lemon flavored brew. That's one of my favorites. And I think GT Trilogy is a raspberry, ginger, lemon flavor as well. So it's a really popular one. Strawberry basil, blackberry rosemary. I see a question from the answer 3. Do you burp your bottles? I've had bottles shoot everywhere early on when I tried to open it. This is blueberry vanilla, noticeably more fizzy for some reason. So I do not burp my bottles. And the reason why I don't is because it's, well, for a couple reasons. One, it's counterproductive to the, I guess, the goal of trapping carbonation into the liquid. So I don't burp my bottles. And I have a more eloquent video where I explain my reasoning. But another reason is because room temperatures or warmer temperatures actually greatly exaggerate carbonation. So I hear this a lot from people where they're like, I burped my bottles and it like made a mess all over the place. But then I chilled it and it was completely flat. So if you open a bottle at room temperature, it's way more likely to give the illusion of overcarbonation than if you were to chill that same bottle, lower the temperature, and then open it once the liquid has been chilled. Cold liquids actually hold on to carbon dioxide much better. And so that's why a lot of people who burp their bottles think like, oh my gosh, I should just like chill all of these bottles because they're clearly overcarbonated. And then after they chill them, they're like, wait, where did all the carbonation go? It made a total mess when I opened it at room temp. And it's just it's an illusion, my friend. It's a scientific illusion. And so I don't really like. I know there are a lot of home brewers out there that are like, you've got to burp your bottles because otherwise they'll explode. I actually argue that it is more dangerous to have that bottle explode in your hand if you're using unpressure rated bottles, if you're using bottles that are not safe for high pressurized contents, and you agitate that bottle or you try to open it at room temperature, now you run the risk of that bottle literally shattering in your hand because you decided to burp it while it's at room temperature. And to me, it just feels that, like, I don't know. I listen to science, not fear mongering. So we've got more orange juice here. We're going to add this to our brew. And give that another stir and another taste. But like I said, experiment. Do what works for you. If you feel safer burping your bottles and that's how you prefer to do it, then by all means. But I have never found it necessary. I've never found it useful. I found it more misleading than anything. And to address the claims about bottles exploding, it's actually riskier to try to deal with a glass bottle that's pressurized at room temperature than if you were to chill it down and open it when it's colder. Let's see, any questions? What is the gadget called that you're putting the orange in, and where do you get it? QVC. It's just, oh my gosh, I don't know. It's just an orange juicer. The brand is Avo Bagel. The brand is apparently Avo Bagel. But I purchased this from QVC online. Very affordable, nifty tool. Okay, so we're gonna taste this, see if more of that orange juice flavor is coming through. Much better, yes. Yes, there we are. So we are ready to put these into our bottles. And so at this point, it's very simple. So we've got our rosemary in our individual little bottles here. I don't have a funnel because I forgot it and I don't feel like getting it. So we're just gonna pour. People ask me if you need to leave headspace or airspace to help with carbonation. I've done side-by-side tests. I haven't seen that significant of a difference where it's made me want to take the extra effort of being super precise in that way. That said, I know that other people may have other feelings about it. And so if you have a strong preference about how much airspace or headspace you leave in the bottle, drop it in the chat. I will always want to know what people's preferences are or what you found in your tests. Oh my gosh, there's like a lot of yeast that went into this one. In all likelihood, I am going to strain these bottles after they're finished carbonating because I want to strain the rosemary out and I want to strain those yeasty bits out so that it's a smooth brew. especially if I'm serving it to guests, and especially if I'm serving it to people who are a little on the squeamish side. But if it was just me, like, I don't mind the yeasty bits. They're totally drinkable. Okay. So I'm going to put more rosemary into, let's say, maybe 4 bottles. Okay. And so things like this also, I find that whenever I add herbs or fruit that the yeast can sort of form around, it tends to yield uh, a more carbonated brew. And I don't know if that's just because like all of the surfaces of the rosemary leaves kind of give the yeast something to form around, and therefore more yeast, more carbonation. Um, but I'm going to give this a stir. So yeast again has this tendency to settle down at the bottom. And so if you want consistently carbonated brews across your entire batch, just make sure you take the time to stir it to make sure that that liquid is as homogeneous as it can be. Someone's asking, where is your large pitcher from? I got this from a restaurant supply store. So that's I buy from places that consumers don't often purchase from because I like to buy in bulk and I'm kind of a cheapskate. In some ways, other people in my life would not say that I'm a cheapskate in other ways. Like when it comes to my tea budget, I am most definitely not a cheapskate. Like I will purchase tea like it's nobody's business. But when it comes to like other things, like pitchers and home supplies, uh, bulk bottles, I'm a little bit of a cheapskate. Okay. Oh my gosh. Oh, overfilled. That's okay. Okay. I'm gonna do one more bottle here. Let's see. Other questions I can answer. Does hard kombucha require a third fermentation? Hard kombucha, I have never attempted to make hard kombucha at home. It's very difficult to get a high enough ABV on a ferment. Oh my gosh. Okay. Multitasking. It's very difficult to get a high enough ABV. I'm just going to drink this later, the tiny amount of liquid in there. It's hard to get a high amount of ABV using just straight kombucha culture because it doesn't really produce a lot of alcohol. Um, but I have heard other brewers use like champagne yeast and introduce that into the ferment at a stage in the process to actually make it more alcoholic. I haven't played around with that myself, so I can't speak to it personally, but um, I don't know that simply a third fermentation will produce hard kombucha. It's more likely to produce a higher ABV, but it may not be high enough to technically be considered hard kombucha, depending on what or how alcoholic you want it to be. Other questions. Would you chill the bottle for just a few hours a day? What would you say is a good amount of time to make it safer to open so it doesn't burst? I mean, if you're using pressure rated food safe bottles, and if you're using the bottles that I recommend, it's very unlikely that it will explode. And by burst, do you mean just like the liquid making a mess, or do you mean the glass literally shattering and breaking? Because I realize people use the word explode in different ways, and sometimes I answer one when they really mean the other. But I would say, okay, burst as in liquid making a mess. Cool. I would say I would say over like 8 hours just to be safe. Overnight, if you can do it. Like once the liquid is totally chilled down to whatever the temperature is of your refrigerator, um, that's pretty safe. A good trick to get it to chill faster if you're in a hurry is take like a cloth or a paper towel and soak it in water and then literally just wrap it around the outside of the bottle and stick it in the freezer for like 30 minutes. Make sure you don't forget it because liquids expand in the freezer, of course, and so that could make your glass shatter if you do forget it and if it's filled all the way to the top. But that's one quick way to chill your liquid quickly if you just want to test and see if it's carbonated enough, which is totally fair. So I am at this point just going to go ahead and dry the tops. This is a step that most people forget, and I, as loosey goosey as I am about many things, as you can see, I don't forget to skip this step because liquid, really anything that prevents an airtight seal is likely to hinder carbonation. So I always make sure to dry the bottle tops really thoroughly before I seal them. People are recommending that you open them outside if you don't want to make a mess. One other way that I recommend opening bottles to prevent making a mess is doing so uh, in a Ziploc bag. Just put a Ziploc bag over your container and put it in a bowl to catch any spillover, and then literally just like open the bottle. And so any liquid that sort of fountains out of the bottle will just spill into the Ziploc bag and fall right back into the bowl. So you can still preserve that liquid and none of it has to go to waste. So that's another way to prevent a mess. Okay, so our pops are dry. Let's talk about caps. I love talking about caps. So, the other aspect of my bottle obsession, I went through and I tested so many different caps. And there are so many people online that will tell you that for carbonated beverages, the type of cap that you need to get is a polycone seal cap. I don't think they're correct. I've tested many polycone seal caps, and polycone seal caps are the ones that they look like a normal cap, but there's actually like a little plastic like cone on the inside that is allegedly supposed to help seal in carbonation. But I have actually found the opposite to be true. I don't know if it's, I don't know. I don't know why. But I've tested different polycone seal caps from different manufacturers that I've bought at different dates, tried them with different flavors, and they do not hold carbonation for me. So I don't know if this is a phenomenon that's unique to me. They won't carbonate for me, but um, I don't recommend polycone seal caps. Plus, they're more expensive. These are basic, oh my gosh, F217 caps, just the basic liner on the inside. The size of this particular one for the stout bottles that I have are 38 by 400, and that size just refers to the I guess the diameter of the top and the type of threading that is on the inside. So these are 38 by 400. You can find more details on this on my website and in my bottles and caps video. I go into a lot of detail there. But these are great replacement caps for GT's bottles as well. So same thread, same diameter. So if you are reusing GT's bottles and you find that those caps are no longer working or no longer holding a seal, or you've lost them or they've broken, buy 38 by 400 F217 caps and you can use them as replacements. So I told you, I did a lot of research, trial and error. I went down a bottle and cap rabbit hole. So we are just putting caps on all of these bottles and sealing them tight. And what you're gonna do after all of these are sealed is go through and just double seal them tight. This is the part that I am really not as loosey-goosey about because I like a carbonated kombucha. I like good, hard carbonation. Um, and this is the most efficient way to do that. So I get my bottles to carbonate within probably around 3 days, 3 to 4 days. In colder temperatures in the winter here in LA, sometimes it takes up to a week, but we still get there. We still get carbonation. So after we've sealed them, just take like a rubber gripper. This is just like a really base. I've had this for so many years. It's a grippy rubber thing, and just do an extra tight seal. And that will make sure that your bottles are as airtight as possible. And then from here, I'm just gonna let them sit at room temperature. I generally like to keep them in either a cabinet or some enclosed space, just in case I have a faulty cap that I maybe reused too many times, that's broken or leaky. It's just easier to contain the mess if you put it on a tray or keep it in a cabinet where it's not likely to like leak all over your countertop and ruin your other possessions in any way. But yeah, these are just going to hang out at room temperature for about 3 to 4 days. Maybe I'll do another live when we're ready to taste them, just so that you can see the carbonation and see how it actually looks. You can follow this specific batch from start to finish, first fermentation all the way to tasting. But I am expecting that based on the weather in LA right now, this is probably going to take about 3 to 4 days. But yeah, that's about it. That was a very long-winded way to show you how to juice oranges and put kombucha into bottles, I realize. But thanks for hanging out with me. Oh, I forgot. I wanted to show you the chilies that I'm fermenting. So I like to ferment things, as you may have realized if you follow the channel. And so I've been fermenting and making fermented chilies and hot sauce for intermittently for a few years. And I have 3 different chilies that I have been fermenting for the past since June 15th. If I can read this, let me just grab them. Okay. 3 types of fermented chilies here. We've got some Fresno chilies. We have some manzana chiles, which I have never encountered before. I think I've encountered the dried version of it. I've never seen them fresh, but my local Mexican grocery store, which I love, I'm a Vallarta fan, Stan Vallarta, since I was a kid. If you have a Vallarta in your area, go check them out. They have just great selections of everything. Found some manzana chiles, which are hot. These are fiery. I love them. Tasted one before I fermented this little batch here. They're a little more fibrous and a little bit more pulpy than you would expect a chili to be, but the spice level was almost habanero like, which I love. I like spicy food. But slightly fruitier. There was a fruitier component to this, so I'm excited to try that into a hot sauce. We also have some serranos here that I have added a couple habaneros and some garlic cloves. And then here, like I said, we have the Fresnos. So I started fermenting these June 18th. It's now the 26th. So I don't know how long these are going to go. I'm probably going to ferment them for about a month. But I have not burped these. I haven't opened these since June 18th. So let's see. I might make a mess because this one is a little overfilled. But okay, maybe we'll try opening this one first. So Scott, coming in with a hack for caps. When they bulge, you likely have good carbonation. Um, yes. So that's another thing that's really great about these F217 caps is, and mine actually don't stay raised. So when they get carbonated, you can actually see the lid curve upward and convex, concave. One of the cons, it will bulge, but bulge is a weird word. It'll bulge. I need to go to bed, guys. Okay, the tops will no longer be flat. Convex, yes, thank you. AI coming to the rescue, as AI inevitably will for all of us, right? Um, I need to go to bed. All right, this is getting out of hand. The caps will convex when there's enough pressure in there to indicate good carbonation. So that's another reason why these caps are awesome. All right, let's burp this bottle, this jar. Okay, just gonna put that here for easy viewing, I guess. That's precarious. That's not smart. That's not a good idea. Okay. Okay. That was anticlimactic. Nothing happened. Okay, I also don't think I sealed it very tight. See, follow my advice from earlier where I said dry the tops and make sure they're sealed. But we're not aiming for carbonation here, so it's a different ferment. It doesn't matter. It smells amazing. Oh my gosh. It's not vinegary because there's no vinegar in here. So what's in this? Equal parts salt and sugar and water. I don't remember how much. If you're interested in fermenting chilies with me, maybe I'll do a live stream on other things I ferment. Let me know. Comment if you're into ferments other than kombucha. And maybe we'll do more of these. But yeah, I'm probably gonna let this ferment for another couple weeks. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Let's see if the oh, did you hear that? You probably didn't hear that. I have an AirPod in. I heard a little come out of this one. So let's see if there's any bubble action. Okay. Ooh, okay. There's definitely some bubble action. I don't know if you can see it. My camera is not great and it's dark now. I'm sorry. But there is some very small micro bubbles that are coming to the surface, which means that this is a fizzy brew. We've got some fizz. Oh my gosh. Do you see it? No? Maybe? Okay. You're just gonna have to trust me. You're gonna have to take my word for it that bubbles were rising to the top. Okay, we'll try the Fresnos now too. This one I kind of overfilled. This is filled to the top. So if a mess was going to happen, it would probably be with this one. But let's see. Once again, anticlimactic, but it smells delicious. And I do see some bubble action, but I'm not gonna, again, you're just gonna have to take my word for it. Well, that was less interesting of a demo than I was expecting it to be. It was supposed to be like a fun finale, but instead you just looked at jars of chilies that I'm like excitedly saying, look, do you see the bubbles? There were bubbles, I swear. Okay, anyhow, I think that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a fun way to break up the week. I will probably, at the very least, post some videos of me opening and tasting these bottles, which I'm sure will be more carbonated than those chilies. And maybe we'll do another live stream. Maybe I'll just sip kombucha and answer questions. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found this useful and fun and helpful. As always, there are a variety of resources, free resources on my website, youbrewkombucha.com. If you have really any question about kombucha, click over to the Brewer's resources section of the website. That's where you can find a categorized list of all of the different topics that I've covered, either through in-depth articles on my website or through videos here on YouTube on my channel. I also have a book, a logbook, the Kombucha Crafter's Logbook, which somebody won. Somebody won because they guessed this flavor. I will reach out to that person if they aren't tuned into this live stream right now. I will find you and I will send you my book. Congratulations to you. But if you're interested in checking out that book, it's a really great companion to all of the free resources that I provide here on this channel and on my website, because not only is it an abridged sort of guidebook and troubleshooting guide that walks you through all of the different variables of making kombucha, but the rest of the book is dedicated to being a logbook with charts that you can fill in so that you can literally take notes and learn and iterate from batch to batch. That was how I learned when I first started brewing, and for people that learn similarly to me, it was just a really great, easy, visual, and tactile way to immerse yourself into the fermentation process. So I hope that that is helpful for those of you who like tracking your batches that way. So I think that is all I wanted to share with you all. But if I've forgotten anything, I'll pop it down in the description box below. If you found this useful, feel free to leave me a tip. I'll pop that link down below. It's also on my website. But otherwise, have a great rest of your evening, rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much for joining me. Happy brewing.